How you guys doing today? All right, so what I want to talk about today is having a good fear of the Lord. So if we were to take our Bibles and go to Psalms 111 verse 10, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do his commandments. His praise endures forever." So what does that mean? Well, let's go straight to the Bible and find out what that means. So first thing we want to do, I guess we could take a look at some stories, or at least one story in particular from the Bible that I like to reference for fear. And that goes back to Genesis chapter 22, 11 through 13. And before we get into there, you know the story where God called Abraham to take his son to the mountain, and Abraham was under the impression that he was going to have to sacrifice his son. It was his only son. Abraham was up there in age, and for God to call him and say, "Hey, take this one who you have, who you love, and go to the mountain where you're going to offer a sacrifice." Well, God, hold on. Where's the lamb that I'm going to take for this sacrifice? Imagine taking your child to the mountaintop, not knowing where you're going to get that blood offering from. But then we know that God finds Abraham to be worthy and faithful and righteous, and at the end of the day, he doesn't. Well, here's what the verse says. "But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, 'Abraham, Abraham.' So he said, 'I am here.' And he said, 'Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.' Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son." It's amazing the things that God can do and will do in our lives when we stop and have no fear of the other things around us. If you truly have fear for God, then fear for everything else kind of goes out of the window. So maybe it's that job you're looking at taking, but maybe it's not as much money as what you're currently making. You're wondering, how am I going to get by when I'm going to be making less money than what I'm making now? Should I take this job? Well, if God is calling you to do that, then yes, you take that job. You put your fear in the Lord and not your fear in the unknown, and watch what God will do. If you're doing things to please man, if you're doing things to please your friends, if you're doing things to please anybody but God, because you fear a reprisal from them, you fear what they're going to say, you fear how they're going to treat you, you're doing it wrong. And I know it's easier said than done. It's much easier said than done. But it takes constant prayer. It takes constant looking at what's going on in your life to really gain a grasp on, why am I doing this? Why have I set upon this path in my life instead of this path in my life? Versus, God, what would you have me to do? Am I doing this out of deference for you, or am I doing this because I'm scared of some other outcome or something that I think will happen, but I don't know? Fear of the unknown is real. It is extremely real, but we have to put our trust in God that He will make the difference in our lives.